Sega, a company as synonymous with video games and the 90s. Hold on. In the 90s, as companies like Nintendo or Atari. Once the main rival to Nintendo in the console wars, they still live on today, making some pretty radical titles, like the Yakuza series, and also some not so radical ones. Inside of Sega is a team named after a specific spinning blue hedgehog with the attitude of Bill Clinton. Yeah, that part's real. This team helped make one of the most iconic video game characters of all time, and made many classics that tons of people still praise and replay into the modern era. That team is Sonic Team. Nowadays, Sonic Team is more synonymous with the feeling of pressing start, moving forward, jumping once, pausing both in and out of the game, then releasing a disappointed but expectant But in their heyday, Sonic Team made what some consider to be among the greatest games of all time. Obviously known for their namesake, Sonic Team has developed a ton of other properties that are remembered just as fondly as Sonic himself. Knights, Billy Hatcher, Phantasy Star Online, Choo Choo Motherfucking Rocket. As many of you all know, I'm actually a video game guy. I can't do this anymore. This bit's over. I can't keep it up. We're done. Sorry. As whoever that was just said, I'm actually much more of a video game guy. I've always loved them and always loved learning about them. I had a brief stint with collecting retro games. I spent hours reading through wiki holes of weird games and genres, and I keep up to date with gaming news. All this to say, when I saw a game made by Sonic Team, one of the most famous and oldest named dev teams that I had somehow never heard of, I was astounded. Now for context, we're gonna have to go back to Sega for a second. See, when more and more companies were trying to get in on the console game, and Nintendo was still comfortably at the top with the SNES, Sega's response was to release "Those are probably benign, but you may want to see a doctor about that." But to combat Sony's new 32-bit CD console, Sega did the unthinkable. And that's not in a good way. They released both the 32X add-on to the Genesis and a brand new console, the Sega Saturn. And when I say they dropped both, I mean Saturn dropped November 22nd, 1994 in Japan, and one day prior, the 32X dropped in America. Then the 32X dropped 2 weeks later in Japan, and dropped a month after that in Europe. Meanwhile, the Saturn wouldn't hit American shelves until May of 1995 and July for Europe. All this paired with the fact that the console was considered rather difficult to program for due to it actually using 2D sprites to simulate 3D, as opposed to the polygonal style of Sony and Nintendo's true 3D consoles. All this, coupled with the fact that there would never be a true Sonic game on the console, thanks to the cancellation of this fish-eyed fever dream, sealed its fate in the eyes of the fans. While Sega did support it rather well and it had many faithful arcade ports, the third-party support just wasn't there due to its odd infrastructure and Sony's PlayStation devouring the market. Ultimately, it only sold a measly 9.26 million units worldwide in a 3 to 4 year lifespan. For comparison, the Dreamcast only sold about 100,000 less than that, and only survived for half the time. Basically, the Saturn walked onto stage with a smile on its face and a gun to its head. At least it was better than the noose already around the Dreamcast's neck. But hidden on this bizarre console, dropped near the end of its lifespan with limited copies, is a forgotten gem developed by the Sonic Team. A 3D third-person shooter platformer action game that is full of charm and style, complete with anime cutscenes, full voice acting, and one of the coolest theme songs I've ever heard for a video game. I've been listening to this song on repeat for several days now. And I don't know if this is going to be a hot or cold take, but I think the English version of the theme is better. Yes, the Japanese version is sung by Takenobu Mitsuyoshi, whose voice is forever burned into your heart if you even once heard his classic shout of But there's just something to Dennis St. James' performance that really adds the soul I think it needs. Plus, he sang Battle on the Edge for Daytona USA too, so it's all in the family. Burning Rangers is about Tillis and Sho, the two new recruits of the Burning Rangers, a group of space-age firefighters featuring Chris, the operator, Reed, or Lead?
Sho, let me introduce you to Reed Phoenix. Reed Phoenix. Reed Phoenix.
And motherfucking Big Land Man. You'll be running through various burning buildings to shoot fires with your laser, platform with your rocket suit, and teleport people to safety with crystals. But let's stop and go back to Chris for a second and discuss what I think is absolutely the coolest part of this video game. Now, in games with maze-like corridors such as this, you're typically given a minimap, compass, big glowy arrow button, or even just a shift the camera to where you're supposed to go button. But not in Burning Rangers! Instead, at any point, you can press the X button, and your character will call on Chris to give you real-time contextual directions on where you should be headed. This can range from simple
Go up.
And
Turn to the right.
Commands to pretty complex
Enter the door on your right.
Instructions. She'll even chime in naturally to give you snippets of direction without you needing to press the button and warn you if you're headed the wrong way.
Sho, go back. That's the wrong way.
Occasionally, you'll be too deep or in an area with no map on file, so Chris will just have to offer her advice, but admit that you're on your own for navigation. But the coolest part about this radio system? The other characters use it too. As you're progressing through the levels, you'll hear the other Burning Rangers call on Chris to guide them, teleport a survivor, warn her of pathways being blocked or the power being out, and even being hit and having their shields drained.
Shoot.
Reed, your shield level just dropped. Are you alright?
Resupplying energy to the shields. I'm fine. Back to our mission.
At any moment, you'll be reminded that you're not alone in this inferno. You're part of a team, and that team is working just as hard as you are to save people. It's amazing, and I'm genuinely sad that I haven't seen anything since outside of maybe the directions in LA Noire, but you still have a mini-map there, so... As for the game itself, you'll be running, jumping, dodging, and shooting through industrial mazes in an attempt to save survivors and put out the fires as fast as possible. Scattered around the level and rewarded to you for putting out fires are crystals that serve two purposes, teleporting survivors and shielding you from damage. To rescue anyone you'll find, you'll need at least 5 crystals. As for your shields, this is where your first taste of Sonic is coming in. We'll be comparing this to Sonic a lot, so get used to it. Whenever you're hit by fire or a boss, you'll drop all of the crystals you have on you and they'll scatter all around, bouncing up and down and shrinking until you grab them or they disappear. In true Sonic fashion though, it doesn't matter how many you have. Getting hit once will drop the exact number you were carrying until you have 20 or more crystals. After that, the max you'll be able to recover is 20 crystals, and that's much easier said than done. And boy will you need those crystals, because you'll be getting hit quite a bit at the start. Much like Sonic, Burning Rangers has a movement system that I can only describe as that feeling where you're frustratedly trying to slip on a shoe with an annoyed grimace until you finally get your foot in and can't help but take a sharp inhale and let out a satisfied ooh at how tight it feels. When I first streamed Burning Rangers, I was slipping all over, struggling to jump up to ledges or across gaps, and dodging was a constantly forgotten or failed mechanic. But as I started to play again to record footage, I found myself gliding over gaps with ease with well-timed double jumps and having a much better read on when to dodge, keep running, or jump to avoid explosions. Movement in Burning Rangers is rather dynamic and often contextual. Running is fairly simple, and your turn is a bit of a wide boat turn rather than a sharp 90-degree one, but hallways are wide enough to accommodate this, and it helps the camera adjust and give you time to react to any surprise fires or explosions around a corner. Whenever an explosion is imminent, you'll hear a whistling sound to alert you. During the whistle, pressing down on the D-pad will cause your character to perform a backflip out of the way of danger. Jumping also has many variants that are used for a variety of situations and jumps. Standing still and pressing A will give you the tallest jump, holding forward and jumping will shoot you forwards with a boost, back and jump gives you the same backflip used in the dodge, and left or right with jump will do a dodge roll in that direction. After jumping, holding a direction and doing the double jump also leads to different variations of directional movement. The B button will activate buttons, but much more importantly, shoots your blaster. You can tap it for a normal shot that will extinguish most normal fires, or hold it down for a charged blast that will help you with stronger fires and enemies, but will destroy any crystals caught in the blast, including those that would be dropped by the fire. Other than that, you've got Y, L, and R to move the camera, and X to trigger the aforementioned voice navigation system. As for the levels themselves, there's a few things that you'll have to learn on your own. Or just listen to me explain them, I guess. The timer is pretty self-explanatory, but is another taste of that Sonic influence as it pushes you to get through each segment as fast as possible. The crystals and the blaster icons are also pretty obvious. The real mystery will come from these two parts of the UI. This green bar represents a timer of sorts. It ticks down as you spend time in any given room or section of the level. However, it refills a little each time you put out a fire. When the bar hits 0, it will trigger a series of targeted explosions underneath your character as a punishment for moving too slow. On the other hand, this limit graph will increase as the bar decreases and decreases as you put out fires. Each time you let the bar run out, the limit reaches another 20% and will continue ticking back up from there with no way to reduce it below each 20% increment. And if you're the type to compete with yourself, at the end of each level you'll receive a character action game style grade for how many survivors you saved, your total crystals collected, your time fighting the boss, and how high your limit reached during the mission. Thus, technically the main level timer doesn't actually matter. But the longer you spend in a level, the higher this limit is likely to be, as you won't have enough fires to put out to counteract how long you've been wandering around. The game itself is short, only being about 4 missions long, but once you hit that 4th mission, shit gets weird. Suddenly you're on an alien space colony that's headed towards Earth in order to cure a girl held in stasis on board, but the computer's AI also began absorbing anything in its path to create a shield, so it will ironically devour the Earth in the process of trying to save her. There's no one to save here, so it's more of a mad dash to the end while avoiding new fires and powerful enemies. You also do this speed tunnel section that's admittedly messy and awkward. Also, all the bosses are pretty lame and easy to the point where beating any of them close to the 2-minute mark is considered slow and will get you a bad ranking. And they're all weird too. Monster plant, monster fish, crystal with trash, crystal by itself, ball with crystals, then just a demon. Pro tip time! When going into the first half of the final boss, hold down the fire button. Throughout the game, you may notice cutscenes happen in real time and take control of your character, shown by how the character will run in circles to place themselves in the right position, or collecting crystals. Thus, when you walk in, the game lets go of the fire button and releases a fully charged shot into the boss and reduces it to about half health. I don't know why this shot does so much more damage. Once you've blown up the demon, that's it. You get one last anime cutscene and several pieces of art during the credits. Ultimately, I think this game is awesome, and I am genuinely pissed that I only found out about it now, 22 years after its release. Sega still knows it exists! They put a remix of one of the songs in Sonic All-Stars Racing Transformed. That's the name. Why they refuse to port it, make a sequel, remake it, anything? It baffles me. As I'd argue, it is the first proper reimagining of maybe not Sonic proper, but the Sonic design philosophy in a 3D environment. Bottom line, Burning Rangers is sick, the theme song slaps. Your move, Sega.